Hello. Welcome to this new live. I hope you're well ahead of the Christmas season. You've done all your gifts and you're not too late. If you're too late, there's still Amazon. Today in this on this live, we're going to talk about how to build a secure attachment style. I will basically share with you the common questions, the frequently asked questions, things that I've received both on Instagram, by email, on the previous live call that we had earlier this week. Before I start, it'd be great to see if you're online. Let me know where you're dialing from. Last time we had people that have Valencia. Hola, Sona. Nice to have you here. Last time we had like California, Asia, Europe. That was amazing. And the reason I'm doing this call, so first of all, because Düsseldorf, guten Tag. But I'm not gonna do all the Portugal is buen dia. Okay, Swedish, I don't know. Everyone. The reason I want to really focus on building a secure attachment style, as you know, I'm a former dismissive avoidant, and as a therapist, I help people building a secure attachment style. And if you've read the book Attached, and obviously you're familiar with the attachment theory, this is if you had to choose one thing that you have to do in order to have successful relationship, in order to have success in your relationship and build healthy and sustainable relationship. It's not about communication. It's not about compatibility. It's about attachment. If you figure this out, you basically cover 90% of the problems. Not all the problems, 90% is maybe a little bit too much, but most of the problem, and you can basically understand most of the relationship dynamics using this framework. Because if you start with that, you're going to have, if we talk about communication, you're going to have a communication based on your insecurities, on your partner's insecurities. And so if you're in the context of a breakup, for example, there's a lot for you to learn in order to either move on, heal, or get back with your ex on this attachment style. It's something that I've developed, that I will develop because it's not published yet on the book. It's about pragmatic empathy. It's about how we use the principles of attachment style to really have a proper grid of proper framework to navigate any form of relationships. I'm gonna list some of the questions that I have. If you have any questions, please let me know on the chat. Obviously, I hope you understand that if your question is very specific to your situation, this is not the right place for me to answer this type of question, because I would need to ask you more questions, and it's not possible in this framework. So feel free to book a call with me and we'll discuss, or join me on the program next year. We'll discuss and have more like of a collaborative framework, collaborative platform for us to discuss. If the question is about secure attachment style, is about attachment theory, generic, and people will that people can relate to, don't hesitate. But if it's just about like, my ex sent me this, what should I do? I'm not going to pick your question. I would be more than happy to help you, but that wouldn't be the right place. Let me start with the first question. How to stop yearning for the person after I broke it off? So you need to understand that the process of healing, the process of moving on, is a process. And some people think that emotions, they have to keep them on the side. They don't have to, they have to keep them away. The whole point of therapy, the whole point of the process of healing is about how you process emotions. And it's a work on its own. So it's understanding this process, first of all. Also reflect on the breakup. And it's, when I say this, it sounds like very easy, but in a way, it's very hard to do it objectively. It's really hard to do it with a secure lens. Very often, and I will refer that to in this call, is you always have to look at the story with a different lens. The way you see your life, the way you see your situation is different than the way I would see your life, the way your partner will see your life. And it's very important to build this ability to be able to switch from one narrative to another. And when you reflect, The breakup, it's very easy to feel guilty, to feel angry, to feel responsible, or to feel that the other way around, to feel that the other one is responsible, that you've done nothing wrong. So it's finding the right balance. It's also important to, and that's what we do in therapy, and that's what we will do in the upcoming program, make a list, an inventory of your relationship, an inventory of your life. Kind of use this breakup for you to, okay, this is a break. I need to figure out what I want, what I don't want, so I can make the right decisions. Very often people, they jump from a relationship to another one. They rebound. And if you've been following me, you know that rebound relationships don't work because they don't do the work. They don't learn from their mistakes, and they keep on repeating patterns. They keep on jumping into a relationship that don't work for them. So that's the first question. I see other comments, so I'm going to pick some questions live. Yes, I know. Very good question. Assuming therapy, coaching, etc., how long will it take to produce enough change to make an anxious-avoidant relationship more probable? Okay, so I'm going to answer the very political question. It depends. Then the real answer is therapy can take years. And some therapists, because in a way it's in their business model, would want you to take years to address those things. By experience, if you have a targeted approach, if your objective is building a secure attachment style, it shouldn't take years. It could take weeks. So it starts with self-awareness. It starts with, and which is very, honestly, in one session, in one-to-one session, you know where it's coming from, and you know how you need to change it. The problem is how you apply it. The problem is that you have years of unconscious programming that you have to overwrite. And that's the thing that you need to work on. It doesn't take years to make significant changes. It takes few weeks because and it takes few weeks because if you start having also a conversation, and so the thing is, in the context of a breakup, it's difficult because it's not necessarily the right timing to address any insecurities, to talk about your emotions, to talk about your growth. But let's say you're still in a relationship with your partner, and I don't know your context, it's easier to approach the conversation based on attachment theory, and you'll make significant progress if you manage to have a conversation rather than having a conversation on you versus me. You want this. You don't understand me. Shift the conversation around attachment theory. Trust me, you'll make significant change because you will basically show your partner that you understand them. Now, the question is also, they need to be curious and they need to want to understand you. And it's by using this, again, I'm going to refer back to this pragmatic empathy. This is what will empower you. This is what will make you feel and break this anxious-avoidant trap. The self-awareness, if you both have this self-awareness, I know that if I react this way as an avoidant to my partner who has a tendency to be anxious, I know he or she will react this way. By doing that, you're not going to prevent all your conflict and all disagreements, but you know that when they react in a certain way, they've been activated. And the same way, if you're anxious and have an avoidant partner. So if you shift and raise your knowledge about attachment theory in the context of a relationship, you will break this anxious avoidant trap. And again, I will back to the but. Your partner, if he's avoidant or if he's anxious, needs to also do this work and be curious about this. If you're dating someone who has an insecure attachment style, whether it's anxious or avoidant, but feels he or she doesn't have any problem, or he or she doesn't feel they can change, then my friend, you are wasting your time. Okay, because, and I've mentioned that in a few courses today, you have to be in a relationship where your partner has a growth mindset. It's the only way to ensure that this relationship will be resilient, because things will happen. You will have challenges as a couple, as a person, and your ability to overcome those challenges, that will be the things that will measure the relationship. I'm going to take another question. I am secure. I keep attracting DAs and they don't show their unavailability until about month 3 or 4. By them, I'm looking to move forward. How do I vet them faster before I am attached? It's a really good question. I would like to know why, but that's not the right place to know why and what's going on, because there's maybe similarities. There's an element which is unconscious. Attraction is mainly unconscious, and we are driven to situations that are familiar to us. There's this theory from what's the name of this therapy? It's not Omega. Anyway, there's a couple therapy concept that tells you that in a way, obviously, you're attracted to someone who is kind of the opposite of you, and in a way, you try to be with that person because they help you replay some scenarios that you had in childhood, things that you didn't get. So even at the beginning, there must be some elements, there must be some traits that could be seen as red flags from other people. So there's an element, perhaps you are dismissing some of those signs. I need to know in more detail. The thing is, it's obviously very hard at the beginning. If it keeps on happening, perhaps there's also something about maybe how you make the relationship progress. Maybe it's too fast. Maybe you're asking too much. So it's kind of those two things about maybe there are signs that you don't see because you don't want to see those signs, and it's very much unconscious. So you'll have to have another pair of eyes looking at those relationships. And maybe it's about the pace, and maybe it's about what you are trying to get from those people. And also there's an element, the stages in your life. So your expectations, your definition of commitment is different when you're 20 years old, when you're 30 years old, when you have had kids and you're divorced. So it's also taking this into account, because perhaps you're dating men, I don't know your story, but perhaps you're dating men who are divorced, they have kids. And so their definition of a relationship is different if, for example, you don't have kids and you want to have kids and you want to be spending time together. So there's a lot of criteria, and it's true, it's sometimes a bit confusing. Understand that attraction, and again, we're back to building a secure attachment style. We often attracted to things we don't have, and also there's a part of our insecure or that our inner child that, in a way, pushes us to situations where we want to repair some part of a bond that we had with our parents. And so when you do this work of reflection, self-reflection, introspection, building this secure attachment style, you'll be able as well to look more clearly. In a way, we're a bit stupid when we're in love, to put it bluntly. And so building a secure attachment style is finding the right balance, is looking at the red flags when there are the red flags, because in a way, those red flags are there, but we unconsciously decide not to look at them. Another question, how to know what the difference is between healthy boundaries or needs and unhealthy anxious needs? It's a good question. And I think there's always this element when you try to deal with someone who's avoidant, you might be thinking, and it depends on the situation, you might be thinking, I'm triggering him or her because my needs, I have unrealistic needs. And so, yes, there's an element of trying to figure out what's the right amount of closeness. And of course, the problem is, as you grew up with a certain framework, and perhaps other relationship made you, create some very rigid internal working models, you don't know. And so your baseline is very, very insecure. One way to do it, and I do some visualization exercise with my clients, is find people around you who you know are secure and ask yourself, how would this person react if he or she was in my situation? And there's a very an example of something that you probably most people relate. We all have, I have a lot of friends who would disregard great partners. And perhaps you're in that situation where you feel like, I'm not attracted to this guy, I'm not attracted to this woman, he or she's kind of boring. And so it's the kind of person everyone, all of your friends tell you, like, he's great, she's smart, why is it not working out? And you would respond like, finding boring. And so it's a question of, again, back to the attraction element, is finding where is the secure response. So in a way, you might not be sure what is a healthy boundaries, what is your healthy expectation of needs. I'm pretty sure you know. I'm pretty sure you have examples around you, maybe not in your family, maybe not amongst your siblings, but from your friends, from your colleagues, of people who have secure relationship, of people who are, in a way, they have a healthy response. And it's about how you can shift to, okay, how would my best friend would react in that situation? Would she accept being treated this way? Would she walk away? And all those questions. So in a way, there's, yes, a part of how can you work at developing and, again, working on those internal working models and reframing those internal working models. When I do the exercise with my clients, when we list those internal working models, for them, it's not very hard to find out what would be a secure response. So the challenge is really about self-reflection on your triggers, how you react, the internal working model, I'm going to say it again, and try to brainstorm with a therapist, with someone, with yourself, what would be the secure response. And I'm pretty sure you can find, because it's not a black or white answer, there are different ways to react. And I'm pretty sure you can see what's realistic, what's not realistic. Let me take some other questions that I had. How can I prove I am secure now in the context of anxious avoidance? So it's a question that I get a lot. I'm working on myself. My boyfriend, he's avoidant. We are back together, or we are trying to get back together. How can I prove that I've done that work? So it's not about having a pitch book, presenting them the work that you've done, your agenda with all the meetings that you had, the sessions that you had with your therapist. It's about showing up. It's about demonstrating to this person that you've changed. So it's not about the word, it's about consistency. It's very easy to fake it once or, few dates. What the person will assess is whether the person you are now, whether your communication, your behaviors, the way you interact with them, your nonverbal cues as well, they are consistent. Because in the context of a relationship or a breakup, we tend to label people. This is a good person, he's too emotional, she's too clingy. And so if you want to demonstrate any form of change, yes, you have to do the work, but it's about consistency. And there's another element, and it's something that I will cover in my upcoming program. It's also about effective communication. So communication is not enough, but it's true that in a way, it's a little bit like selling a product. You can have a great product. So Apple, they're great at making great products, but they're also great at marketing. And so they wouldn't sell as many iPhones, as many MacBook, if they were not at great at marketing. And so there's an element of working on your product, working at being secure. I don't know if it's a good image, but I'll use that anyway. And there's also an element of how can you communicate effectively your needs, respecting their boundaries, and making your point without sort of threatening their sense of freedom or their sense of independence if you're dealing with someone avoidant. And so very often people are saying like they're very good in marketing. They do a lot of work at communicating. They read a lot of books about nonviolent communication because they've heard communication is the most important aspect in the relationship, but they fail to do the work. And could be also the other way around. A lot of my clients, as you know, I have some clients on WhatsApp. A lot of my clients on WhatsApp, not that they're not good, but they have to learn how to communicate effectively. So they use me in a way as their whisper. I whisper to their ears about what they should say, what they should respond in the context of a conversation. Let me take another question. What's this one? We are back together. It's progressing slowly. How should I bring up how I feel about the situation? So, and then it's really about why is it progressing slowly? If you, and I assume this question is about someone who's dating someone avoidant, it's always slower than we expect it to be. When you get back with someone you love, if you know what you want, if you project yourself into the future, so very often we can say that anxious people are really fixated on the future. They anticipate things, they project, they want to have a sense of certainty of what will happen in the future. Avoidant, it's kind of day to day. So I'm a bit like this. It's kind of day to day. You know, what will happen in 1 week is already too far ahead for me. And so that creates a frustration of things building up slowly. So it's important also to take into account the dynamic of the relationship before the breakup. Again, it's very important to assess whether the person you're trying to get back with, the person you're trying to build a relationship with, is in the mindset of let's work it out. If you're the only one flexing yourself, trying to accommodate, trying to go with the flow, that wouldn't be sustainable long term. So this hot and cold, and again, I have a lot of my clients on WhatsApp, you have to go through a phase of hot and cold because this is a sign that this person is not sure. It's not a sign that they are not interested, because if they are not interested, they ignore you, or and we have a question about that. They ignore you, or they tell you clearly. Sometimes they don't. Usually they don't tell you clearly. That's the problem. But this hot and cold is, there's an internal conflict, and it's about the communication, bringing them to a secure place where they will open up, where they will feel secure and be inspired to work on themselves. So the way it works is not about forcing them. It's not about using ultimatum for them to change. It's about, this is acting as a role model. I'm the mature person. I'm clear with my boundaries. I'm clear with my expectations. I respect you. I understand how you function. I'm the role model. Now, if you want to be in a relationship with me, you also have to man up. You also have to do the work. And so this hot and cold, I would say if you do it for 6 months and you're still hot and cold, there's a question to be asked whether that's the right relationship. Because a person who feels okay in this hot and cold for more than 6 months is not boyfriend or girlfriend material, right? Because always, if you're in a relationship with someone who has feelings, for example, if I'm avoidant and I'm in a relationship with someone, at some stage, if I have feelings for that person, I will want to build something. If my fear of commitment is above my feelings, and I'm okay with this situation, then I'm not going to change, right? Something needs to happen. Some things need to change. If they feel okay with this situation, if they feel okay that they see you every now and then, they are on and off, and it's not what you want, then you have to take take some space, reassess, and ask yourself whether it's the right relationship, whether it's the right person for you. Because I have a question on ghosting. How to deal with ghosting? Is it the sign he's avoidant? So ghosting is the sign that that person is coward and immature. Ghosting, silence is a form of communication. So the problem with silence is that we tend to fill the gaps. And that uncertainty, those millions of situations, because we don't know, will create a lot of anxiety. Anxiety, and I'm not talking about attachment style, anxiety is asking yourself questions that you can't answer and obsessed about them. And so in the context of ghosting, what have I done wrong? Is he saying someone? All those months together, was he really in love? Was he lying to me when he said those things? And so we kind of repeated those things again and again and again. So First of all, when someone ghosts you, you have to understand that it's a form of communication telling you he's not mature, he or she, and I wouldn't find excuses, to be fair, because some people are like, yeah, but he's scared of like my reaction. No. If you're grown up, if you're adult, you can expect your partner to give you a little bit of context, especially if you've had a relationship, especially if people ask me these questions because you were in love with that person, you had something special. So you have every right to know more. And even if it's, I don't love you anymore, I've lost feelings for you, I met someone, you have every right to know this. Now, if you don't have anything, if they only give you silence, then the question is not about why. The question is, what do you do with that? What do you want in your relationship, in your life? Someone who treats you this way or not? And so, as violent as it is, this should be not a wake-up call, but this should be a sign for you to stop thinking about why and ask yourself, how can I project myself into something healthier? Of course, if you keep on getting, ghosted, etc., that's another story. And I know I'm not an expert in dating, and I know it's very frustrating when you start dating people on dating apps, etc. You message them, and then you get, they ghost you. Talking about the ghosting when you've been together for a while, and they don't give you any sort of context or any explanation of why they left. To me, it's a sign that this person is not partner material. They're not ready to be in a relationship. Because yes, there's a fear. You could have fear of confrontation. You could have fear of commitment. But in a way, that's not how you deal with people. And they should know it. So of course, there's fear of confrontation, of your reaction, of whatever, is above the respect they have for you. So what does it tell you? It tells you that you should not. And it's not a question of what you should be doing at this stage in terms of, making them to speak up. And I think it's also accepting the fact that you will never hear from them. And rather than thinking, waiting for them to reply. So obviously it's very violent when I say something like that, but it's easier to deal with situations that are extremely violent and clear, where it's black or white, than having he blocked me or she ghosted me. And in a way, maybe there's 1% chance she'll reach out. This 1% mentality is what keeps you stuck. You don't want to be with someone 1%. You want to be with someone 100%. So it's very important for you to say, I don't accept this to be treated like this 1% chance. You are not a 1% chance. You're 100% chance, if I can use this image. Let me take some other questions. I took them randomly, so I don't know if it's a good one. I've heard securely attached partners can become anxious with avoidant partners. Yes, very good question. So, the way you grade people who are secure, insecure, etc., when you take the test, it's called the ECRR test. It's actually have a quiz. Basically, it's the normalized quiz that you can find in Attach, for example, that you find somewhere online. You have to meet a certain threshold to be considered anxious or avoidant. Doing my research on my book on relationship, I found out, and actually you can find it in every single relationship, that you're always the avoidant of someone or always the anxious of someone. In the context of a relationship, even two people who are secure, one will have a little bit of anxiety, the other one will have a little bit of avoidant side. And I have a lot of my clients who've been, for example, married, in secure relationship, divorced, didn't have any problems with their divorce, but met someone avoidant or anxious, and that triggered them. How do you address this with your partner? So how do you address this with your partner is, again, having a conversation around this self-awareness. So my mission on Earth is about how we can shift the conversations we have in the context of a relationship to you versus me. You don't do this, you don't do that, you don't listen to me. When I say this, you don't, etc., etc. The blame game, or the game of keeping score, right, to a conversation around more personal development, and to some extent it's kind of relationship development. I've learned something about myself. It's very interesting. It explains a lot of our dynamic. Let's discuss this together. It's a bit challenging because you don't want to tell your partner, I know you're avoidant. I've read that online. I saw a guy online. He's a very nice guy, French. Let me send you a link of his YouTube channel. And you'll understand you're avoidant. When you do like this, when you do this, if it's an ex, it's even worse. But if it's even your partner, they'll be very defensive. You don't tell me who I am. Who are you to tell me this? You're not a therapist, etc. So it needs to start from your discovery. Like, oh yeah, I understand why I'm so mad at you when you don't write me. Let me give you a very simple example. Like you could say, I'm trying to figure out remember a case from a client. No, could be when you overreact, for example, when your partner doesn't give you any news, for example, if he goes away. Rather than saying, I hate when you don't message me when you're going away, which could be perceived as like, she's jealous, I'm not cheating on her, why is she always on my back, I'm with my mates and I want to have a good time. Okay, and this is the old blame game. It's more about like, when I was a little girl and my parents were coming back late, I was scared that something could happen to them. And so I developed this insecurity when I know people I care about at night, I don't know what they're up to. So it's pretty much unconscious. I know about it, but I can't help it. When you have a conversation on that, and when you shift that conversation and have that conversation with someone who cares about you, who loves you, and you tell them, this is how I'm constructed, this is my thought process. So it's not against you. I'm just explaining you, this is where it's coming from. My view is if that person loves you, if that person has feelings for you, they need to be curious. They need to be, okay, I understand. So now that I understand where it's coming from, rather than thinking, I need to text my wife because, and I'm picturing like the stag do, you're with your mates and you have to tell, I need to text the wifey because she's worried. You'll be remembering, I know that will reassure her. She's not demanding, she's not controlling, she's not jealous. I know that she needs that because of those internal working models. He won't think it's because of those internal working models, but because she's scared. And I respect that because I care about her. And we all have our fears. So could be, I can find other examples when an avoidant doesn't want to confront and doesn't want to deal with a fight. Actually, it's a very good idea of video, and I could do that perhaps on Instagram. So yes, secure people can be avoidant, can be anxious. You can be triggered. You're always the avoidant or the anxious of someone. The one you should walk away, for me, and I see that very regularly, is the ability for the person to listen. So when I say listen, you have to communicate effectively. And the willing to grow, the willing to change. Okay, because if you're always like, she's always like this, he's always like that, the always never, in the context of a relationship, in the context of a lot of things in life, this is your best recipe to make a relationship not sustainable, not resilient, because things will happen. And it's about how we will change, you will grow. And so if you feel that you're fixated in your mindset, in the way you approach a relationship, it's not going to work. So I hope I answered your question, Rose. Okay, very good question. Sorry, I'm reading the questions before, so I can. I'm sure I know the ones that would be relevant to everyone. We have broken up twice over moving in. He wants the same thing as me, but we have different timeline. And he said part of the reason he doesn't trust me. How should I approach the situation? So the trust me, I need to know more, so I can't answer this. The timeline element. you could meet the right person at the wrong time. That does happen. And so you need to be very clear on what do you really want right now. What I want in a relationship, for instance, is different than what I wanted in a relationship when I was 20 years old. And what I would want in a relationship when I be 60 years old would be different than what I want now. And this is why a lot of people break up when they go through life crisis. So a lot of my clients, they break up because one of them is going through a life crisis. They feel they want different things in life, and for some reason, they associate their partner, their wife, their husbands, to that old them. I've changed. I want something different. I want new things, and you're part of the old life. So I don't want this anymore. So it's very important to assess what you really want. And if the timeline is like, I need to wait for my kids to be 18 years old before we move in together, it's a different question if the kids are if their kids are 70 years old or 3 years old. And so again, and it's something hard to answer because it's easy for me to answer. It's hard for you because you have things for that person, you have a history, but it's really being a little bit more rational about like, what do you really want? Will that person be able to meet my needs right now? Not in 10 years, right now. And if they can't, it's just the right person, wrong time. And if you have faith in love and think that you're gonna meet again in 10 years time, then maybe, but don't put your life on hold waiting for that person to be ready. But what if we don't know what happened to us as a child to explain? You can. So actually, I saw this question as like, you don't need years of therapy to understand the root cause of your attachment style. When I take, and I think and at the beginning I've mentioned that you don't need years of therapy to develop a secure attachment style. You need few weeks to develop enough awareness to have the right tools to get going. Then it's a muscle and you have to work it out every single day with your spouse, with your partner, etc. There's a lot of tools that I use with my clients to really track and draw the line, pull the piece of string that would link how you react now to your childhood. It doesn't, you don't need to go through inner work, hypnotherapy, or do years of psychotherapy to learn that. Because usually you need 1 or 2 events, things that would help you, and that's not the point of this call, but things that will remind you of that. Reflect, have a lot of tools where people can write down, and by doing that, you have your user manual in a way. Because what happens is those unconscious drivers were formed in childhood, and so because they're unconscious, we can't really, they're automatic. The definition of unconscious mind is this, that we can't control them. So one way to control those drivers is to be more aware. Knowing them doesn't necessarily prevent you from acting out of impulse. And that's the whole work, which could take months, but it doesn't really matter if it takes months because and every single day you'll try to iterate and become better at doing that. I saw kindly an avoidant, so I took the question. How to kindly tell an avoidant that I'm sure you're based in England. How to tell an avoidant that they have unhealthy patterns? They identify unhealthy pattern in me. Okay. So that's the blame game. If that person, and that's the problem with avoidance, and I have another question that I will take to explain this. Avoidant, they have a tendency, they're islands, so they have a tendency to see the world is the problem, I'm fine. Okay? So depending on how they grew up, but they could have an idea of like they are the perfect child or whatever. And so their way to deactivate, their way to reinforce their sense of independence would be to feel like, oh yeah, but she's too like this, he's too like that. I've seen this trend on on social media, the beige flags. And so it's if he's fixated on your insecurities, your unhealthy patterns, and he doesn't accept that he has unhealthy patterns, that's a sign that he's not necessarily ready to be partner material. There's an element of communication to potentially diffuse this situation, because probably you end up being in the blame game. So it's very easy to end up in the blame game, and I'm not blaming you for being in the blame game. But of course, because you have feelings, because there's a lot of ego to take into account in a relationship, it's very hard not to accuse the other. So again, it's really assessing whether this person has a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. One of the key elements, for example, that I ask my clients who are dating with avoidance is like, if this person is willing to see a therapist, not myself, but if the idea of seeing a therapist is something that crossed their mind. If the answer is like, no, never, they're completely against that, they feel like you need to have a problem, and that's a sign that this person is not ready. So love, relationship, feelings could trigger this need to discover more, to work on their insecurities. If he or she he decides to, that's his narrative, the way he sees things is that you're responsible and he's perfect, you're gonna have a hard time being in a relationship with him. And I would ask myself the question of, long term, how would that work for you if that person is not willing to challenge themselves and meet you halfway? Okay. My dear ex wants to meet again. He says he's attracted to me, but only wants to stay friends. I'm going to answer in two parts. Is there a possibility for us to be a couple? He knows I want children. He does not. That's why he broke up. First part of the question, the friendship element. Avoidant, they fear commitment, and they could feel overwhelmed very easily. When you break up with them, the way you need to start the recovery process is start from what they like. So if you had an amazing relationship with them and they enjoyed spending time with you, you need to start there. So it's kind of the other way around of how you build success in a sustainable relationship. Because sustainable relationship is about how you build up intimacy, how you discuss deep things, how you are vulnerable, etc. And that needs to come after. When you get back with someone avoidant, you have to start extremely low in terms of intimacy, very superficial, and build up from there. The same way you started your relationship potentially with him. And so, yes, there's an element of friendship. Now, if you are trying to get back with that person and you have a story with that person, then the friendship, I always like, it's kind of hard to be friends with someone very quickly after a breakup. So some people, some avoidant, they feel safer if they label you their friends. But in a way, what you have to assess is the dynamic, whether it's progressing. And so the friend or the recovery phase shouldn't take more than 3 months, for example. I say 3 months because it's usually 3 months of you bringing them to that secure base, showing them what they're missing out, not being with you, as you increase the level of intimacy. And if they don't want this, to pull out, and it's not gonna work out. Now, the very important question in your question is, he knows I want children, he does not. I see two circles that don't overlap. There's no space between you two. And in a way, this is a make or break situation that can be solved. If he doesn't want kid and you want kid, he's not the right partner for you. I don't care about your chemistry. I don't care how amazing the sex is with him. I don't care how smart he is. I don't care what you had together. If you want kids, he doesn't want to have kids, that's not going to work out. It's very easy for me to say, obviously. But again, it's how you can look at it from a rational point of view, not based on I need to make it work, starting from what do I want, which is slightly different. Very often we try to have a situation that doesn't work and I'm going to try to make it. No, start with you. What would be the ideal relationship? Picture who would be the ideal partner and see whether there's any overlap, whether fitting this this person into this relationship is hard or easy. If it's easy, if you see like, okay, it's going to be easier and there's only a few things to adjust, fine. If it's too far away, well, you know the answer. And I'm pretty sure you know the answer already. No. I'm just reading that. Okay, so I'm just like, I see a lot of questions that are not necessarily relevant. I see a question from Carlos about people shifting from secure to anxious. No. Let me check, because I had other questions. Yeah. What's the best way for dismissive avoidant to realize he's the... it's a question I will attempt to address next year. I'm building up a website, kind of the diary of an avoidant, where I would share my experience, some tips, because I know that my content, a lot of my audience is anxiously attached, and I know it's not necessarily the right content to share to someone who's avoidant. So I'm going to create something different where people would relate. Again, avoidant are island. And despite the fact that they're island, it's true that when you know this, when you have someone telling you, providing you a framework, because it's kind of very, in a way, there's a formula. And so when you read this and feel like, this is why I'm struggling with intimacy. This is why commitment is difficult. So for instance, last Friday, I was at a Christmas party, and one of the person came to me and he's, I think I'm scared of commitment, and he didn't know avoidance. So I explained him, and he was like, this is why. And so when you learn this acts as a wake-up call. The challenge that you have, guys, is that it's going to be very hard for you to be the one being the you have a problem. So that's why it's good to have a third party. It's good to have something that you could share that is not judgmental, that is not like, I think you're like this, I think you're like that. The point of being secure, and what I want also to discuss in this on this live is that sorry, I found out that yes, therapy could take years, and if the objective is to shift from working at being from an anxious or insecure attachment style to being secure, if you have the right structure, if you ask yourself the right questions, if you have the right level of support, in a few weeks you will see significant changes. And that's what I want to build up and create. So I'm going to stop doing one-to-one calls for the time being. I'm going to focus on where you would have weekly coaching calls with myself in a group setting. And the upside of the group setting is that you will be able to also see other people's story. So hopefully we'll have people who are avoidant in the program, so you can also discuss with them, not only with me, but being avoidant, and together working at, doing the homework. Because I think when you see a therapist, the way it felt, and I know a lot of my clients have seen a therapist or still seeing a therapist, they fail to see progress, they fail to see any form of reflection and tools to empower them. My objective is that you don't need me, okay? I want to provide you the tools and everything that you need to do it on your own. And so the formula that we've tested with Elizabeth, we're going to expand it. We tested a small version, a few 2 weeks boot camp. We're going to do a 4 weeks in January, where you have enough time to reflect, where you have the ability to ask me as many questions as you like. when you have tools and resources for you to reflect, to also apply what you learn. So it's also about the application. Maybe it's like 20% of awareness, 80% of application, and you don't need me to do it. You need me to fine-tune the process, to better understand and have some sort of really precise answers to your case. And then it's about how you can put it into practice. So that's what we will launch in January. If you have any question, let me know on the chat. There will be a link somewhere in the description on the page of the program. I'm doing an early bird discount, which is $300 discount if you sign up before Friday. If you have any questions on the program, let me know on the comment section. And the idea is to provide you the tools, in a way replace 1 year of therapy in 1 month. When I say this, it's because the focus is really about developing attachment style. Obviously, we can't do everything in 1 month, but the idea is, as we have a very narrow focus, it's kind of applying the Pareto principle. We do the 20% that provides 80% of the outcome. When you do that, you don't need months. You don't need, if you do have the right tools and you have also the right. I found also that, and I think I'm like this, but I think a lot of people are like this. It's way easier when things are intense, when you have to do a lot of things in a very short amount of time, rather than knowing like, oh, I have a year to do this. So that's what we want to replicate. And what was the other thing that I wanted to say? I think that's it. I will see you in the new year. If you have any questions, I will also leave a link to email me if you have any questions that you can send me by email. I will be away from Friday, only looking after my WhatsApp clients, and won't have any one-to-one calls for the time being, potentially, but maybe not before March. So if you're interested in WhatsApp, I will also put a link. I'm fully booked, so there's a waiting list, but I'll also put a link to sign up to the waiting list. And I will see you in the new year. Have amazing Christmas break with your loved ones. I hope Santa Claus will spoil you, and you won't be too stressed by the chores of going everywhere to celebrate Christmas. And I will see you in the new year. Bye-bye. Take care of yourself. Bye.